2 months ago, my sister went to Yunnan to teach. The teaching location was a small village called Duoji at the northwest foot of Ailao Mountain. At first, she shared mostly natural scenery, local customs, and the smiling faces of her students in her moments. Everything was normal. Until one day ago, she posted a weird moments. Black dog grows white scales, meat well blinks thousands of eyes, humans can't escape Ailao Mountain. I also commented at the time, "Did you eat colorful mushrooms for lunch?" She didn't reply to me. But in less than half a minute, she posted another moments. Don't cut off the yin-yang thread. Yin-yang thread? I was confused. Did she really eat poisonous mushrooms by mistake and have hallucinations? I had a bad feeling and sent a message to ask, but I didn't get a reply all afternoon, so I called her anxiously. "Hello, the number you dialed is currently unanswered. Please call again later." I called several times, and it was a familiar electronic sound. I tried every way to contact my sister, but there was no response. My anxiety grew stronger. Early the next morning, I rushed to the police station. "Police comrade, my sister has lost contact." Hearing this, the police on duty instantly became alert. "Don't panic, speak slowly. What's your sister's name? How long has she been out of contact? Where was she last seen?" "My sister's name is Song Yao. She went to teach in Duoji village, Yunnan 2 months ago. She was fine at first, but from yesterday noon to now." My voice trembled unconsciously. I can't contact her." The police comforted me while typing on the keyboard. "Don't worry, I'll check this place first so that I can contact my colleagues there." As time passed, his face gradually darkened. "What's the situation?" My heart was in my throat. The police looked at me coldly and said seriously, "Next time you make a false report, be careful that you will be detained. Make a false report." Hearing this, I immediately became anxious. "Comrade police, my sister is really out of contact. She may be in danger." Still pretending, the police looked unfriendly. "I just checked. There is no Duoji village in Yunnan. And the household registration shows that you are an only child." At this point, he looked straight at me. "Where did your sister come from?" "Only child? How is that possible?" I shook my head, opened my phone, and pointed. "Look, this is my sister's WeChat. She also posted to Weird Moments." The police looked at the phone and then at me. "Are you sure?" I realized it later and looked at the phone screen. A cold chill rushed to my temple. The 2 moments disappeared. The phone interface was not my sister's WeChat homepage at all, but my own homepage. There are exceptions. I quickly swiped my phone, but I couldn't find my sister's WeChat. "I told you not to do it again." The police glanced at me coldly. "There's no need to pretend anymore." I was so anxious that I was sweating and begged him to give me another chance. I immediately called acquaintances to try to prove it, but they all told me, "I don't have a sister." In the end, the police said I was making a fuss and refused to file a case. When I got home, my sister's clothes, school awards, and group photos were gone. It seemed that the whole world had wiped out all traces of her. In the following days, I was looking for evidence that my sister had existed, but the more I searched, the more desperate I became. I even suspected that I was mentally ill and that the so-called sister was just a fantasy of mine, but the memories in my mind were too real. My parents died early in a car accident, and my sister and I were raised by my grandmother, until my grandmother died of a heart attack 3 years ago, and my sister became my only relative. Is all this fake? I don't want to believe it. I forced myself to calm down and sort out all the details. In addition to the non-existent Doji village, the most critical information is the 2 WeChat moments I saw. Black dogs grow white scales, meat wells blink thousands of eyes, and humans cannot escape from Ailao Mountain. Don't cut off the yin and yang thread. Although the content is obscure, careful study can still extract useful information. Assuming that my sister exists, she teaches near Ailao Mountain, and her WeChat moments say humans cannot escape from Ailao Mountain. There are already 2 details that point to Ailao Mountain. Could it be she is trapped in this mountain? After much thought, I decided to go to Yunnan myself. Even if the whole world gave up on my sister, I couldn't give up on her. She is my only relative. The scenery outside the window changed, and the train drove towards the vast darkness. At that time, I didn't know that the nightmare that would trap me for the rest of my life in the future had already enveloped me. Ailao Mountain is a famous human-restricted area in China. Except for a few areas on the periphery that have been developed into scenic spots, most of the area is dense primeval forest. It is shrouded in fog all year round. Every year, there are many expedition teams that lose contact in it. According to the information I have found, the northwest foot of Ailao Mountain, where Dwoji village is located, is a large uninhabited area. It would be a lie to say that I am not scared, but there are always some things that have to be done. At most, I can find a few more guides in the local area so that I will not get lost in it. After getting off the high-speed rail, I chartered a car to Ailao Mountain. Master, is there a village called Dwoji near Ailao Mountain? I haven't heard of it. The driver shook his head. I was not discouraged by the expected answer, but I was a little uneasy. Perhaps because the ride was long, the driver couldn't keep quiet and said, "Young man, why are you going to the northwest foothills? That place is very evil." I laughed and asked, "Master, do you have any explanation?" About 3 or 4 years ago, a cousin of mine went in there to collect herbs. 5 people went in and he came back alone, the driver sighed. I was shocked. Did he encounter an accident? No one knows what they encountered. The driver's face changed slightly and he couldn't help shuddering. My cousin came out crazy and couldn't get anything out of him. In less than 3 days, his whole body melted, like a pool of black mud. Speaking of this, he said in fear, after burying him, the grave not only cracked strangely, but even the body in the coffin disappeared. At that time, someone passed by and said that they saw a big black moth crawling out of the grave. Unconsciously, I broke out in a cold sweat. I continued to ask, "Is there anything else strange?" Strange, the driver thought for a moment. If there is anything else, it's that he knelt down to worship Nuwa every day, and kept saying that he wanted to go back to the holy village. I keenly caught the key words, holy village. What place is that? After a while, the driver didn't reply. So, I leaned forward and patted the driver's shoulder. "Master, your cousin." Before I finished speaking, I withdrew my hand as if I had been electrocuted. The touch under the shoulder was cold and sticky, as if something was crawling. Click! The driver slowly turned his head. With a bang, the fine fear exploded on my scalp. On the man's pale face, his eyeballs bulged out, bursting like crushed grapes, and 2 hideous snake heads drilled out. Then came the mouth, ears, nostrils. I screamed, opened the car door, and fell down. Bang, bang. I saw the surrounding environment clearly. It was in a tunnel. Cement blocks kept falling from the top. I looked up, and my pupils suddenly contracted. Is this meat? The stench spread in the air. Under the peeling cement of the tunnel, fleshy texture was revealed, and milky white mucus kept oozing out of the surface. Just like the stomach of some creature. I didn't have time to think about it and ran back desperately. But the next moment, the tide of mucus wrapped me up, and I felt suffocated and lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, there was a large tract of primeval forest around me. Laughter and joy came from not far away. It was a small village. I got up and walked over. I saw a big stone at the entrance of the village. The surface was covered with moss. I stroked it with my hand. I could vaguely see 3 words written on it, Dwoji village. We're here already. I was stunned. We were still in the tunnel just now. Teacher Song is back. Suddenly, a silver bell-like laughter came to my ears. A little girl with a ponytail ran over and hugged my thighs. Soon, a bunch of children ran out. Innocent and tender smiling faces surrounded me and shouted, "Teacher Song is back. Teacher Song is back. Teacher Song is back." The laughter that kept echoing made me feel dizzy. I shook my head and said, "I'm not your Teacher Song." Gradually, the adults also gathered. An old man with white hair came over. "Is that Teacher Song?" "You recognized the wrong person." I took off my hat, revealing my short hair. "I am Teacher Song Yao's younger brother. My name is Songzi. How long will Teacher Song be back?" The old man's Adam's apple rolled. "She has been gone for almost a week, and the children in the village are clamoring for the teacher. I came here to find my sister. My face looked a little ugly. She lost contact, and I can't find her anywhere. Teacher Song will come back." The old man suddenly showed a firm look. "We all believe that Teacher Song will come back." "That's right, Teacher Song will come back," the adults and children said in unison. I was puzzled. Did she say that herself? Teacher Song often leaves, but every time after a period of time, she will come back to the village. The old man looked solemn. There is no exception. Is it always like this? I asked. The old man nodded. I pondered for a moment and said, how long was she away last time? More than a month. The old man frowned. I can't remember, but it's been nearly 2 months anyway. 55 days. Teacher Song was away for 55 days last time. A red-faced boy raised his hand high. I frowned. Did she say what she was going to do? The old man shook his head and said nothing. Both sides fell into a brief silence. Then, the old man spoke first. You are Teacher Song's younger brother, and you should be a college student. Otherwise, you can live in the village and wait for her to come back. These days, I hope you can help teach the children. As the village chief, I thank you on behalf of all the villagers. The children looked up at me, their eyes full of expectations. I nodded in agreement. First, I softened my heart when I saw the innocent smiles of the children. Second, I wanted to adapt to the situation. I came here inexplicably, which was weird. Sure enough, less than half a day after arriving in the village, I noticed something was wrong. There are too many strange places in this village. For example, the big black dog in the village chief's house. I was arranged to live in the village chief's house. My sister's room was next door, so I thought it would be convenient for me to teach on her behalf and read her lesson plans and teaching materials. There were many empty rooms in the village chief's house, and besides himself, there was only a big black dog. When I saw the big black dog for the first time, I couldn't help but think of that circle of friends. The black dog grows white scales, and the meat well blinks thousands of eyes. Humans can't escape from Ailao Mountain. The black dog is a fine dog, with shiny hair. I observed it carefully, and there was not even a single white hair, let alone any white scales. The only strange thing was that it didn't bark. Even when it saw me, an outsider, it didn't bark, but lowered its head, staring at me with its two rolling eyes. It was very creepy and made my back cold. This feeling was very familiar, but I couldn't remember it for a while. The village chief said that this was a breed of mountain guard dog. A biting dog doesn't bark. Even though it's silent, if a thief comes, it won't get away without losing a piece of meat. I thought I was too neurotic. Until this morning, I saw a big black dog hiding in the bushes outside the house and swallowing a big rooster. Yes, it swallowed. At that time, I read the lesson plan for 2 hours. My eyes were sore, and I looked at the green leaves to relieve fatigue. I happened to see the big black dog hiding in the bushes. It saw the right opportunity and bit off the rooster's neck. Instead of chewing it, it swallowed it whole. I finally found the source of the fear of being watched before. It's the feeling of being stared at by a poisonous snake. The big black dog gave me a feeling that it was not like a dog, but more like a snake. Of course, the weirdness of the village is not limited to this. Dorj, in Tibetan, means vira and auspiciousness, and the extended meaning is lucky person. This village seems to have the connotation of Tibetan culture, but the beliefs it worships are the human-headed snake-bodied Nue and Fuxi. I took the excuse of digesting food after dinner and strolled around the village. I found that on the outer wall of each house, there was a painting of Nue and Fuxi mating, with long snake tails entwined and extending to the ground, like an endless double helix. Teacher, a red-faced boy trotted over and asked, have you seen my big rooster? I couldn't find it after searching for a long time. I remembered the boy, his name was Ursu. It was him who said that my sister had been gone for 55 days last time. Big rooster. I hesitated to speak, but finally shook my head. Ursu sighed, but soon cheered up. Then teacher, remember to tell me if you see the big rooster. My home is at the east end of the village. I said yes. Watching Ursu go away, I returned to the village head's house and continued to organize my sister's things. At this moment, an old notebook under several textbooks caught my attention. I took it out and flipped through it, and found that it was a diary written by my sister. However, the moment I saw the first page, my heart almost skipped a beat. 17/12, Sunny. Ursu was eaten by a dog, and his mother was very happy. Ursu is dead. I broke out in a cold sweat on my forehead. Who did I see just now? The child died. Normally, the mother should be sad. Why is his mother so happy? Crash. At this moment, a black shadow flashed past the window. Who? I shouted, picked up the bench with one hand, and hurried out to check. There was nothing outside the window. Only the distant cicada chirping echoed in the darkness. Suspicious. After carefully looking around twice and confirming that there was nothing strange, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Back in the room, I continued to look through the diary. The 17th of July, cloudy weather. Arsu held a funeral. Everyone was so indifferent. I discovered a secret. I was slightly moved and turned the page quickly. But the content behind was disappointing. Many of the contents had been torn up. The text appeared again, and the date had reached July 16th. Must escape, must escape, must escape. Turning back, there are large traces of tearing. The content is missing. Only the last page is left, and the content is intact. But this page does not look like a diary. There is no date, no weather, and even no punctuation. The scribbled big words almost fill the whole paper. Don't run away, don't run away, don't run away. I seem to be able to feel the fear coming out of the paper. What secret is here? The last two sentences are so contradictory. Sister, what did you experience during this period? My mind was a mess. For some reason, I felt like I was being watched. I subconsciously looked up and was instantly terrified. To rolling eyes, looking at the edge of the window, big black dog, I was frightened. A gust of night wind blew past, shaking the old wooden window and making it creak. In the blink of an eye, the black dog in the window disappeared. Bang! There was a sound of wood colliding outside the door. I looked out the window and saw that the door to the yard was opened. The big black dog walked in first, then came the slow-moving village chief. He noticed my gaze, turned his head, and slowly smiled. Did you find anything? Ah, I forced myself to be calm and pretended to be confused. What did you find? The village chief's cloudy old eyes stared at me motionlessly. The big black dog grinned with a pointed mouth, the scarlet tongue rolled, and saliva flowed all over the floor. The air seemed to freeze. My mind was tense, and cold sweat oozed from my forehead. After a while, the village chief smiled and said, "Haven't you noticed yet? The children's grades are pretty good. Although the environment is not as good as that of big cities, the children are very smart. Teacher Song often praised them before." Oh, yes. I nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. I saw the homework handed in last time, and the children did a good job. The village chief nodded with satisfaction and turned back to the house. The big black dog walked away with its tail drooping. I closed the window, and before I knew it, my back was soaked. Because of that diary, my sleepiness, which was not much, was completely exhausted. In the end, I was really tired, so I barely slept for 2 or 3 hours. The next day, I was awakened by the sound of gongs and drums. The cheerful tune stirred the foggy morning. The village chief squatted under the eaves and ate noodles. I asked, "Village chief, what happened?" "Nothing serious." The village chief showed his yellow teeth and said, "Asu died. The funeral just ended. His mother was playing the drums and was very happy. Asu died." I was struck by lightning and said belatedly, "What day is today?" "July 13th. The village chief drank the noodle soup in the bowl, threw the empty bowl into the pot of hot water, and preached, "You young people, don't remember the day of the week. Don't remember the lunar calendar. You should also remember the number of the solar calendar month." I was stunned. After a long while, I took out my mobile phone and checked the time. July 13th. Strange. Didn't I remember it was autumn? A few days ago, after get-off work, I was sitting in a park full of maple leaves, teasing the fish in the lake. "What's that smell?" I wrinkled my nose and smelled a strange burnt smell, looking around for the source. The village chief took a small stool and sat in front of the stove, adding a few firewood. In the burning flames, there was a small section of blood-stained sleeves exposed. The figures were dim and the morning mist was surging. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the unforgettable painting, since the big black dog had a bulging belly and a mouth full of sharp teeth, stained with blood. My heart was filled with fear. There was a brown stripe on the half-sleeve, exactly the same as the clothes Erzu wore yesterday. I screamed and ran out of the door like crazy. I don't know how long I ran, but I suddenly stopped. The cheerful singing flowed. The woman in flowery clothes held a gong and drum, standing at the mouth of the well, with a smile from the heart on her face, humming an unknown tune. The villagers around were expressionless. There was neither curiosity nor surprise, more like a deep pool of calm. "It's better to die, it's better to die." The woman suddenly laughed. "It's suffering to live, Erzu, you are free." She looked at the villagers around her, pointed at everyone and laughed. saying that they were a group of piglets raised in a pigsty. The villagers were calm and almost numb. Hey haha. The woman covered her stomach. Her voice sounded like she was laughing, but her face was full of tears. Who, my child, it would be great if you were really free. Next time, we won't come here. Puff. Half of the arm fell into the well. The woman pulled out the machete from her waist and cut off her hand, followed by her legs. Blood splattered. Did she want to chop herself into pieces? The villagers just stood there, without stopping. This is crazy. I tried to squeeze through the crowd, yelling. Who was eaten by a dog, the black dog of the village chief's family. The woman turned her head and looked at me like a fool. I know, I saw it. Why did you see it? I yelled hoarsely. Why didn't you stop it? The woman didn't reply, and looked at me with sympathy. Immediately, she swung the last knife, very hard. Her head fell off, turned around the well twice before falling into the well. What a poor and lucky child. My stomach juice surged. In my unbelievable eyes, the village chief walked out of the crowd, picked up the machete on the ground, and grabbed the woman's remaining broken upper body. After dismembering it into small pieces, they all threw it into the well. The villagers around had no expression, and their calmness was terrifying. I couldn't hold it anymore, so I turned around and ran. This is simply a devil's cave. Leave here. This is the only thought in my mind. I ran into the vast fog, running forward, running. I didn't stop until I was almost out of breath, but when I looked up, I almost fainted. The primeval forest in front of me was dense, and laughter came from not far away. On the moss-covered stone, there were 3 big words written Doji Village. This is impossible. I wiped the sweat off my face, turned around and continued to run. A few hours later, I returned to Doji Village again. I can definitely escape, I just got lost. I comforted myself in my heart, took heavy steps, and turned around and walked into the forest again. In a trance, I seemed to see a black shadow flashing before my eyes. I rubbed my eyes, but there was nothing. Are you seeing things? I sighed, beat my sore muscles twice, and continued to move forward. The next moment, a shadow above my head enveloped me. A voice came from my ear. The exit is always in Doji Village. Have you ever seen a moth bigger than a human? I have. At this moment, it flew down from the top of my head. The nearly 2-meter-long black wings flapped, dropping dense black particles, choking me and making me cough violently. A voice came from the black moth. You will never get out if you run like this. Maybe the recent events were too weird, so when I saw this big black moth, I was not as scared as I imagined. After all, it was just an enlarged version of the moth, but it could talk. I asked bravely, who are you? I am trapped here like you. The first sentence came from the left, but the next sentence came from the right of the black moth. We can cooperate. People, I looked at him warily. I was originally a villager in Ailao Village, Shishan County, west of Ailao Mountain. The black moth said in a muffled voice, a few years ago, I went into the mountains to collect herbs and was bewitched by that monster. After that, it spread its wings. I staggered back in shock. There was an identical human face in the center of the 2 wings covered with scales. It said, later, I became like this. What monster? I asked. Where do you think this is? The 2 faces on the wings said at the same time, this is Nua's nest, the monster's nest. Monster refers to Nua. I was puzzled and said, have you seen Nua? No. Black Moth denied it. I didn't have the chance to see her, so I was expelled by the villagers. I thought for a moment and said, you went into the mountains to collect herbs. 5 people went together, but you went back alone. What happened? All the information showed that the black moth in front of me was the cousin mentioned by the driver before. Hearing this, Black Moth was obviously shocked. I continued, since we want to cooperate, everyone must show sincerity. Black Moth sighed and then told me about his experience. 4 years ago, he and his companions made an appointment to go into the mountains to collect herbs. The team was full of old herbalists who knew the limits and never went deep into the Ailao Mountains. But that time, after walking around the mountain for several hours, they didn't find any medicinal herbs. The weather was fine, so someone suggested going deeper to have a look. They made a living by selling medicine. The whole family was waiting for dinner, and the middle-aged man was under great pressure. He was somewhat unwilling to go back empty-handed. After a discussion, they made an exception. At the beginning, Everything went smoothly and the harvest was fruitful. However, on the way back, a heavy fog suddenly appeared. It was very strange. The group hurried to evacuate, but they still underestimated the fog in Ailao Mountain and got lost in it. The fog lasted for several days. The dry food brought by the team had been eaten long ago. The physical fatigue and the risk of hypothermia at any time made them almost desperate. On the fourth day, they came to Duoji village. They thought they were saved, but they didn't expect it to be the beginning of a nightmare. The other four are all crazy. At this point, Heimo showed fear and his body was shaking. After calming down for a long time, he continued. On the night they came to Doji village, they were like crazy and chopped each other's necks. I tried to stop them, but it was too late. All dead. I caught the suspicious point. Since you escaped later, why did you come here? Heimo looked painful. I was bewitched by fear and greed. After escaping inexplicably, my health deteriorated. I was scared. There was a voice in my head that kept telling me that I could only live if I returned to the village. He said he was Nuwa and would give me eternal life. So I came back here, but I didn't know it was all a scam. I nodded and thought. Then, in exchange, I briefly described my experience of looking for my sister and coming to this village inexplicably. Your sister should have been bewitched too, Heimo thought thoughtfully. I asked, you said the exit was in Doji village. What's the matter? Although I don't know how to get out last time, I can be 100% sure that the place I stayed is in the village in my last consciousness. Heimo insisted, your sister must be here too. The most urgent thing is to find the exit first. Otherwise, even if you find your sister, what's the use if you can't get out? I weighed the pros and cons and nodded in agreement. It can be seen that Heimo had a plan. He had been secretly observing me for a long time, including the previous black shadow and my feeling of being watched, all from him. According to his plan, I was responsible for inquiring in the village and looking for an exit when the opportunity arose, and he was responsible for squatting outside the village. During this period, he would provide all the help he could. Before venturing into the village to observe your situation, these villagers have already had some doubts. Heimo flapped his wings, and both of his faces looked ugly. I was convinced by his reason and chose to act separately. After several hours of trekking, without any accidents, I returned to the village again, and the villagers greeted me enthusiastically. Teacher Song is back. Teacher Song, the children are waiting for your class. The children are looking forward to it. When I heard their address, I was about to refute, but I found that what they said seemed to be right. A substitute teacher is also a teacher. I responded with a smile and came to the classroom. The moment I opened the door, the children stood up in unison. Hello, Teacher Song. Hello, students. I picked up the textbook. Fortunately, I had read my sister's lesson plan before, so I taught easily. After class, I asked the children, Children, is there any fun place in the village? Fun places? A child shook his head. We have played in every corner of the village for a long time. Other children agreed. I had to ask instead, is there any strange place? The children turned their heads to think. Before they could answer, with a bang, the classroom door opened, and a black mass rolled in. The moment I saw it clearly, I was scared to death. It was the head of the black moth. Hiss. The big black dog rushed in, shaking its hair, and fine white scales emerged from under its skin. The village chief swam, and his original legs turned into a dark green snake tail. Suddenly, he opened his bloody mouth and swallowed me. Why don't you ask me? No, I suddenly opened my eyes and gasped. The village chief stood by the bed and smiled. You woke up so quickly. It seems that the poisoning is not serious. Poisoned. I looked at the village chief vigilantly. Don't come over. Seeing this, the village chief explained, Teacher Song, you were poisoned by the human face moth before, and you had hallucinations. Human face moth, I frowned slightly. The village chief continued, it's that big black moth, a species unique to our Ailao Mountain, and it's bigger than a human. The pattern on its wings looks like a human face, hence its name. The scales on this moth are poisonous and can cause hallucinations. If you're not careful, you'll get caught. I asked, where did the moth go? Don't worry, we've dealt with it. The village chief smiled and said, we burned it clean. It means nothing is left. I asked again, how do you explain the matter of Urzu's mother? That's our custom. If the child dies, the mother voluntarily martyrs herself, and they can be mother and son in the next life. The village chief raised his eyebrows. Do you have any objections to our customs? I kept silent. Is this really an illusion? I always felt that there was something fishy about this matter, and I remained skeptical, but I didn't show it. Then I went to class as usual. That night, after I finished marking the children's homework, I felt a little tired, not knowing whether it was because I was exhausted. So, I turned off the lights and lay down, but just when I was about to fall asleep, I heard some noises. I got up alertly and found that the village chief was carrying a large bag of things and sneaking away. After waiting for a while, I followed quietly. The village chief came to the stone well in the village and poured the bag into it. Because of the angle, I couldn't see what was poured. In desperation, I waited for the village chief to leave before I went forward to check. The well was dark and bottomless. After hesitating for 2 seconds, I gritted my teeth and climbed down along the well rope. The well seemed to be a dry well, abnormally dry. After about 10 minutes, the well was still bottomless. I was running out of energy and had the idea of retreating. Thus, not good. Suddenly there was a violent vibration, and my center of gravity was unstable and I fell down. In my dilated pupils, the stone well in front of me began to change, as if it came alive and turned into pink and tender meat. The meat well is blinking 1,000 eyes. This sentence suddenly emerged in my mind. With a bang, I fell to the bottom of the well, but I was not injured. I was stepping on the pink and soft flesh. I hurriedly got up and looked around carefully. There were no eyes. Crack. There was a crisp sound under my feet. I looked down and saw thin black wings slowly merging with the meat well. The wings of the human face moth. In the center of the wings, the eyes of the human face were closed. There was no pattern at all. The village chief was lying to me. I squatted down and patted the face. Wake up quickly, The eyes on the face slowly opened, and suddenly seemed to be stimulated by something, and screamed, the mountain is breathing. Mountain, Ailao Mountain, I asked hurriedly, what does breathing mean? The human face did not respond, and there was no sound, completely integrated into the meat well. The next second, 2 small bulges emerged, turned into 2 eyes, looking at me with horror. Then 2 pairs of eyes appeared next to me. What a familiar feeling. That look seemed very similar to Ursu's mother and son. I rubbed my eyes, and my limbs were instantly cold. I saw bulges constantly emerging in the meat well, and pairs of eyes kept opening, looking at me together, as if saying, outsider, you shouldn't be here. I quickly grabbed the well rope and climbed up desperately. When I reached the top, I was almost scared back into the well by 2 gray eyeballs. Even after returning to the room, I was still scared. I was destined to stay awake tonight. I got up early, and the village chief cooked noodles for me and handed me chopsticks. I didn't answer, but asked, the human face moth is actually a human, right? The village chief looked at me calmly. You followed me. Where is my sister? Let us out quickly. I was fierce on the outside, but I was actually hiding my guilty conscience. If what I saw before was true, it means that the village chief and the big black dog are not ordinary people and dogs. But since they didn't kill me, maybe there are other reasons. I chose to take a gamble. After a long time, the village chief sighed. You shouldn't know. What's going on? I said in a deep voice. At this time, a villager came and saw me, hesitant to speak. The village chief waved his hand. Are you ready? All is settled. The villager nodded. The village chief nodded and walked out the door. I was a little panicked. Where are you going? The village chief turned his head and smiled. You want to leave here. Shouldn't you know where this is? Seeing that he was about to go far away, I made up my mind and followed him. On the way, the village chief suddenly asked, have you heard of Nuwa creating humans? I asked back, did she make humans out of clay? It's another kind. The village chief shook his head. I remember what the book said. There are 10 gods, named Nuwa's intestines. There are 10 gods, named Nuwa's intestines, who turned into gods and lived in the wilderness of Liguang, across the road. I blurted out and completed the sentence. This is the content of Classic of Mountains and Seas Great Wilderness West Classic, which means that Noah's intestines turned into 10 gods and lived in the wilderness of Liguang, next to a road. When I was in college, I loved to read these miscellaneous books in advanced mathematics class. When I saw this, I discussed with my classmates and said that this should be due to the lack of cognition of ancient ancestors. Intestines can be roughly understood as stomachs. Isn't this giving birth to 10 children? This is closer to reality than making humans out of clay. Yes, that's what I said. The village chief smiled and changed the subject, but I remember someone wrote this comment. Nuwa, the ancient goddess and emperor, has a human face and a snake body. She changes into this god 70 times a day, and her belly turns into this god. At this point, the village chief said meaningfully, with this sentence, it is closer to the truth. I was thinking. Soon, the village chief stopped and I almost bumped into him. I saw him pointing to the front. Creating humans is about to begin. Is this a human-making ceremony? The small square in the center of the village was now full of people. A 4 or 5 meter high platform was built at the original location of the well. The village chief walked to the front and knelt on the ground. Then, other villagers also knelt down, their mouths open and closed, and strange chants echoed. This is, my pupils trembled and my mouth opened slightly. Above the empty high platform, the space began to distort, and an inexplicable creature appeared. At first, it was a human face and a snake body, and the next second it turned into a tiger and a leopard, and then it turned into a fish and shrimp. The transformation speed was very fast, as if many creatures were mixed together. Nuwa, Nuwa, the villagers shouted excitedly. Is this Nuwa's 70 transformations in one day? I looked suspicious. Before I could react, Nuwa turned into a human form, and many portraits of men and women appeared in the air. Each one was individually marked with a serial number. 2 lines appeared on the back of the villagers' necks, in black and white, intertwined in a spiral, and the end extended to Nuwa. Everyone looked carefully first, and then chanted something. I listened carefully and found that they were chanting numbers, each different. 2 men and 1 woman. A grand voice came from Nuwa. Then, the many male and female portraits in the air merged and condensed into 3 light balls, and 3 living people appeared just like that. These faces corresponded to the 3 serial portraits that the villagers chanted the most. 3 people, 2 men and 1 woman, a middle-aged woman, a middle-aged man, and a boy. I smacked my lips. This is the creation of human beings. Everything was over, and all the strange phenomena disappeared. Nuwa not only created human beings, but also created all living things. The village chief stood up and slowly said, have you ever thought that the total amount of creatures in the world has not changed? What do you mean? My heart was shocked. The village chief kicked the lying black dog, for example. It was a human in the previous life, a snake in the previous life, and a dog in this life. We are just tossing around in different bodies. My heart was churning. The law of conservation of biological numbers. The village chief did not answer directly, but pointed to the vegetable field not far away. I planted 10 radishes in that field. If I want to plant potatoes, I can only wait until the harvest and then sow again. Unless the radish seedlings are bad, you can remove them before planting potatoes in advance. He paused and continued. Our village has lost 3 people, including the expelled heretic, so naturally, we have to create 3 more. According to the rules, there must be 100 creatures in the village who are now people or have been people. 100. I suddenly felt a great sense of uneasiness in my heart and angrily asked, is my sister also one of them? The former teacher song is gone. The village chief nodded and looked at me dimly. But the current teacher song is here, so you should stay. All the villagers surrounded me and shouted, Teacher song, please stay. Teacher song, please stay. I was trapped in Dwoji village. For a whole month, I still couldn't find a way out. The villagers didn't care about my escape. As long as I taught the children on time, they wouldn't bother me. Moreover, they were particularly kind to me. It seemed that they had already known that I couldn't escape from this village. In this month, I did everything I could, even tried to set fire to the whole village. Even all the villagers were killed, but I still couldn't escape. Finally, I returned to the village, and everyone was recreated by Nuwa, and everything returned to normal. Gradually, I began to change my strategy. If the hard way didn't work, I would use the soft way. I tried to integrate into the village as much as possible, and save the surrounding environment and terrain with my mobile phone. At the same time, I recorded everything I observed. There is still no clue about the whereabouts of my sister. The village chief said that my sister left, Where did she go? There is no way to know. I can only continue to inquire secretly. Another month passed, and I had completely integrated into the village. Not only the children, but also the adults could chat. That day, after correcting the children's homework, I washed up as usual, lay on the bed, took out the information I recorded, and repeatedly studied it. Half an hour later, the lights were turned off. Not long after, the village chief also fell asleep. There was a faint snoring sound in the air. I took out the machete under the pillow and quietly touched it. The big black dog lay in the yard, motionless. 2 hours ago, I gave it medicine, and it couldn't be deader. The village chief was sleeping soundly. I hit him hard with the back of the knife, and he stretched his body and softened. After that, I turned him over, buried his face in the pillow, pressed the back of his head, and raised the knife high. The village chief actually struggled violently. This movement was much more intense than when I killed him before. I didn't hesitate, and chopped him down at the back of his neck. I chopped up his body and threw it into the well. The next day, the village chief came back. The big black dog also came back. After observing for this period of time, I have figured out some rules of creating people. Newell will follow the principle of voluntariness to a certain extent, just like the mother and son of Ursu and the black moth before. They had no intention to stay in the village, so they were not recreated. The 3 missing people were chosen by the villagers in a relatively democratic way. But if there is a willingness to stay in the village, there will be no above steps. Newell will create him again after his death. Of course, the above rules do not apply to me. I tried to commit suicide, but in the end, I, who wanted to leave, returned to the village. Village chief, you're back, I said with a smile. The village chief was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I'm back. I looked at his back as he turned around, and the corners of my mouth curled up slightly. I may have found a way to leave. The village chief is no longer the village chief he once was. He has become a different person. Although his appearance has not changed much, there are still subtle differences. His eyes are different. The village chief's eyes before were cloudy, but they were brown. But the village chief in front of me has gray pupils, as if covered with a layer of fog, exactly the same as the eyes I saw at the top of the meat well before. That meat well, if nothing unexpected happens, is an eye bank. The eyes of newly created people belong there. The 2 pillars and 3 people did not leave after their death, but their bodies decomposed and turned into parts for creating people again. As for where the former village chief went, I still need to verify it. Just like yesterday, I poisoned the big black dog, and it didn't change much, so it's not worth observing. This new village chief went to bed much later than the former village chief. A person was still drinking in the room, as if celebrating something. Finally made it. The new village chief burped and fell asleep. I waited for a while, and made sure he was really drunk. Then I went over, tied him up tightly, and poured a basin of cold water on him. You are not the former village chief, are you? The new village chief was startled and yelled, What do you want to do? I put the machete behind his neck with a blank expression, and whispered, What will happen if you cut off your yin and yang thread? The new village chief trembled, and the fierceness on his face disappeared, and he begged for mercy. Don't. I beg you. I finally got through it. I can't leave. Where are you going? I was happy, but I didn't show it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm leaving. The new village chief shook his head like a rattle. No one who cuts off the yin and yang thread has ever come back. Sure enough, my guess was right. The only message my sister left was the last one. Don't cut off the yin and yang thread. I had no clue before, until I saw the 2 intertwined black and white lines on the back of everyone's neck when Nuwa created humans, and then I had the answer. Yin and yang correspond to black and white. But what does it mean to say don't cut it off? Heimo once said that the other 4 people in his team cut each other's necks, which should be the yin and yang threads. Later I thought, what would happen if the yin and yang threads were cut off? I tried to cut off my own yin and yang threads, but I couldn't do it anyway. My own yin and yang threads, I couldn't touch them, so I had the idea of verifying it. Sure enough, after what happened to the village chief, this is most likely the way to leave here, just like cutting the silk strings of a puppet. I looked at the new village chief with a terrified face. Help me cut off the yin-yang thread, or I'll cut off yours. Choose for yourself. What do you want? The new village chief trembled and said, No one who cuts off the yin-yang thread has ever come back. It's probably not that they don't want to come back, but that they can't come back. It's so good here, no worries about food and clothing, no fear of life and death. The piglets in the pen think so too, I said coldly. Do you want to choose? The new village chief was sweating profusely, and hurriedly said, Okay, I'll help you cut it. Take it. I untied the new village chief and handed him the knife in my hand. Don't play tricks. The new village chief heard this and simply gave up. What tricks can I play? I wish I could send you away as soon as possible. It's so good to stay here, but you don't enjoy the blessing. And you have to make trouble here and there. I didn't reply. People with different beliefs cannot work together. The new village chief smacked his lips. Seeing that I ignored him, he felt a little embarrassed and had to do business to divert his attention. He put the knife close to the back of my neck. Are you ready? Yes, I replied. Under normal circumstances, although the yin-yang silk cannot be seen, it always exists. The blade slowly moved down. Ding, a slight cracking sound came from the air, and my body trembled suddenly, completely out of control, and fell down. My consciousness was light and seemed to fly away at any time. The direction was right. I couldn't help but feel excited. In the last blurry vision, the small water droplets on the ground reflected my face, making me a little dazed. My hair has become much longer, and my face is haggard but stubborn. No wonder they made a mistake. It really looks like my sister. But sister, where are you? Gradually, I can't see clearly. My consciousness rises. I think I am bathing in the warm ocean. Finally, I can leave. Is it out? I opened my eyes excitedly. A black mass appeared in front of me. When I saw it clearly, I was so scared that I shuddered. Village chief, in front of me was a head. The village chief's face was pale, his expression was distorted, and his eyes were two empty blood holes. There was no sign of life. I looked around and screamed. Where is this? The endless fleshy hillside in front of me was densely packed with heads. In addition to human heads, there were also heads of various animals and some plant roots. All creatures with eyes had their eyes closed. You are on me. A loud voice suddenly came from my mind, answering my question. Then came a certain perspective. I saw a picture that made my scalp tingle. This is a huge existence. Like two spirally intertwined snakes, with two faces that were difficult to distinguish between female and male, their bodies continued to extend, and there was no end in sight. It is exactly the same as the murals on the houses in Dwoji village. Nua and Fuxi, soon, my perception told me that this is a hole. Looking down from above, it is the shape of Ailao Mountain, but it is magnified countless times. Mountains can breathe. In my mind, the last words of the black moth came out. A living mountain can of course breathe. I saw my situation clearly. You can imagine that a different tiny head sticks out of each pore of a person. The guy in front of me replaced the person in the above assumption, and I am one of the countless tiny heads. Fake, must be fake. I couldn't believe it and slapped my head hard. Child, everything you saw before is fake. The voice came again. Your relatives are fake, your gender is fake, and all your experiences are fake. Even the so-called earth is fake. Only you now are real. Is everything fake? My mind went numb and I screamed. Who are you? You are a part of me. If you want to know, you can know it any time. As soon as I finished speaking, many memories came out inexplicably. If there is a creator, it must be him. It is not that he actually created everything, but that he imagined everything. The universe, the sun and the moon, the earth, even the dust, all exist in his mind. He was born a long time ago, and the endless life made him feel bored and wanted to have some fun, so he imagined the earth. Later, he split his spirit into countless children that were governed by the mother body, but had independent consciousness. Then he created a dream for these children. In the dream, it was the world where the earth was. From the very beginning, the number of organisms on the earth was basically constant, because each organism corresponded to a child. At the beginning, they were all single-cell organisms. Later, he imagined the process of life evolution. The organisms on the earth also evolved accordingly. Single-cell organisms, multi-cell organisms, invertebrates and fish, mammals. But he felt that this was not enough and boring. For this reason, humans were born. The above content has completely overturned my cognition. Was the birth of mankind so hasty? I took a break and continued to digest the following content. Humans, with wisdom far exceeding that of other creatures on earth, soon became the overlords of the earth. Even many humans, by accident, discovered the loopholes of the world, but it's not a big problem. In human cognition, these guys who discovered loopholes are all mentally ill and crazy. No one believes them. He will arrange different lives for everyone, all of which are different fun. In order to ensure relative fairness, each sub-body will be randomly assigned again after the end of its life on the Earth level. The next life may be a human or a paramecium. In layman's terms, it is reincarnation. Of course, except for the residents of Doji village, the sub-bodies have no memory of their previous lives after reincarnation. If the Earth is compared to a house, most of the area is the front yard, and Doji village is a relatively private backyard. There must be something different, right? The creatures in Doji village all have many memories of their previous lives and they understand part of the truth of this world. As a price, the villagers will never leave the village. However, although the villagers know part of the truth, it is only part of it. For example, the yin-yang silk, their own origins, etc. They are all unknown. Speaking of the yin-yang silk, it is actually the line connecting the mother body to the child body. Once it is cut off, it will immediately leave the earth world and return to reality. In this regard, the villagers dare not delve into it, let alone delve into it. They have been on earth for too long, and they can no longer bear the reality. The voice of the mother came, in their eyes, the truth is too cruel. The four herbalists as well as the village chief, were unable to accept the truth after waking up, and their spirits collapsed. Is this the reason why they didn't go back? The village chief in front of him, his eyes must have been damaged at that time. The truth is indeed cruel. Everything is fake, even the birth of me is one of his pleasures. The birth of a person is just a pastime. My mind was a mess, and the fear that almost crushed me to death was gone. Only deep sadness remained. The Matrix said again, "You are still very special. Among so many sub-bodies, you are one in a billion. Since the birth of mankind, you have always been a human being." After a long silence, I asked the last question, "Is my sister also a sub-body?" "Of course not. She is just the driving force I deliberately applied to promote your life process." The Matrix slowly explained, "Just like when I was on Earth, didn't people divide me into two? Nua and Fuxi are both me. Everything is clear." I smiled bitterly and slowly closed my eyes. Maple leaves fell with the wind. I rubbed my eyes and confirmed my current state. I was in the park at the moment, squatting by the artificial lake, teasing the little goldfish in the lake with leaves. There was only one possibility: he let me come back. It took me a long time to recover. This feeling was very strange, and I felt the joy of escaping a disaster. After realizing it, I hurriedly took out my mobile phone and opened the circle of friends. I have always had the habit of using the circle of friends as a memo, which is only visible to myself. The photos taken in Dwoji village are all in it. Don't make the same mistake. I must not repeat the same mistake. I will never go to Ailao Mountain again in this life. In order to deal with him using incredible means to interfere in my life again, for the sake of insurance, I decided to record important information and alert myself at all times. Soon, in the circle of friends, I edited the first message. The black dog grows white scales, the meat whale blinks thousands of eyes, and humans cannot escape from Ailao Mountain. After thinking about it, I edited another one. Don't cut off the yin and yang thread. At this point, I suddenly stopped typing and exited the WeChat interface. The phone is still not safe. So, I took out the notebook I had taken before, which had recorded what happened in the village after July 12th. Thinking of that experience, fear spread in my heart. I turned to the latest page. My hand holding the pen was shaking, and I barely wrote a dozen or so scribbled characters. Don't run, don't run, don't run. Always use it to remind myself. No. Looking at the written words, I was suddenly stunned. Why does it feel so familiar? A piercing pain came over my head. I hit my head with the notebook frantically, and the paper inside was torn into pieces and scattered into the lake with the wind. Wrong, wrong, wrong. There is a problem, there is a problem, there is a problem. At this time, a black crow flew over, snatched the notebook with only a few pages left, and flew away. For some reason, The temperature seemed to be rising. What a broken weather. I was sweating profusely, took off my coat, and took out my phone to check the weather forecast. July 6th, cloudy to sunny, 26 to 37 degrees Celsius. I looked around, and the trees around me were green. There were maple leaves just now. Isn't it autumn? Did I see it wrong? I rubbed my temples, feeling a little dizzy for some reason. Did I get heat stroke? I went home, took a shower, drank some Waxion Genki liquid, and felt much better. I opened my phone and happened to see a circle of friends. The black dog grows white scales, the meat whale blinks 1,000 eyes, and humans can't escape from Ailao Mountain. I looked at the other party's ID, and I noted sister. Do I have a sister? After thinking for a moment, I determined the answer. It should be yes. I smiled and shook my head, commenting, "Did you eat colorful mushrooms for lunch?" The end.